the business about social cohesion. His AG was Eric Holder, who, like Obama, lawyer, articulate, spoke in well-crafted, smooth sentences, and played race card after race card after race card. Obama, of course, began his presidency with saying that Cambridge police acted stupidly, referring to a white police officer who was called by a homeowner in an area of Cambridge because a man who turned out to be a Harvard professor, whom Obama knew, black man, was breaking into his own house because he'd forgotten his door key. He'd just come back from vacation. Woman did not recognize him, called 911. Officer shows up, sees a man in the house, does not know whether or not he belongs in the house, so he asks him to come out and show ID. And instead of cooperating with his perfectly lawful, calmly delivered order, the Harvard professor copped an attitude, refused to come out, ultimately got handcuffed briefly while the matter was sorted out. Again, Obama has known this professor, Henry Louis Skip Gates, for years. And what Obama could have said and should have said to the nation, you know, a lot of these encounters that blacks have with the police could completely be avoidable if the black person simply complied. You may not like the way the officer spoke to you, may not like his tone. You may even feel the officer has done something unlawful, in which case you get a badge number, you contact the police station, you file a lawsuit. There are plenty of lawyers that would be more than happy to sue the police. But to escalate an encounter, so you take it to DEFCON 1 where somebody might get hurt, if not killed, it is completely ridiculous and totally avoidable. And I told Skip, I've known you for a number of years. You're a role model. By definition, you're a Harvard tenured professor. People look up to you. People will emulate your behavior. And instead of cooperating with a perfectly lawful order, what did you do? You copped an attitude, essentially conveying to young black men, when you're pulled over, do not cooperate. After all, Harvard tenured professor didn't do it. I'm not going to cooperate. So I want you to pick up the phone and apologize to that officer for simply doing his job. That's what Obama should have said. What did he say? And I'm quoting, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. And it ticked off police officers and police chiefs all over America. Then we had, of course, the death of Trayvon Martin at the hands of George Zimmerman, the neighborhood watch guy. He wasn't a cop. And what did Obama say? If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon, whatever that means. And when Obama was giving a speech before the United Nations, he was talking about how America has its own problems. There's a little place called Ferguson, referring to what happened with Michael Brown and the police officer. Investigation completely, totally exonerated the police officer. Michael Brown did not have his hands up, did not say, don't shoot. The whole thing was a big fat lie. And regarding Trayvon Martin, the jury found George Zimmerman, the man who shot and killed Trayvon Martin, not guilty because of self-defense. Now, there wasn't a black person on the jury, but there was a black alternate. And the alternate said that I would have reached the same conclusion as a jury did. Here's more of what Obama said.
But part of what we're going to have to do is to start experimenting with new forms of journalism and how do we use social media in ways that reaffirm facts, separate facts from opinion. We want diversity of opinion. We don't want diversity of fact. By the way, it will require some government, I believe, regulatory constraints around some of these business models in a way that's consistent with the First Amendment, but that also says, look, there is a difference between these platforms letting all voices be heard versus a business model that elevates the most hateful voices or the most polarizing voices or the most dangerous in the sense of inciting violence voices. And that I think is going to be a big challenge for all of us that we're going to have to undertake.
I have no idea what the man just now said. Do you? We need to have some sort of government regulation in a way that doesn't violate the First Amendment. It is already unlawful to incite violence. We need to separate fact from opinion, says a man who gave us Crossfire Hurricane. That's right. That was authorized the allegation that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians. His FBI started that investigation. He started that investigation. He's the one who essentially accused the Russians of putting Trump there and sought to prove that there was a connection. And I'm just getting warmed up. 888-971-7243. Do not leave town. Obama had Al Sharpton over to the White House. Some put the numbers high as 80. I haven't seen any number lower than 70. The biggest race hustler in America, Al Sharpton. The man who was in the streets of Ferguson after Michael Brown was shot and killed, yelling, "No justice, no peace." A man who claimed he came out of the King movement. MLK was about civil disobedience. He was not about civil disobedience until we didn't get our way, and then we go to rioting. But there he is, Al Sharpton, over in the White House at least 70 or 80 times. I mentioned Eric Holder, his attorney general. Eric Holder gave a speech. You remember the time Donald Sterling, the owner of the LA Clippers, lost his team? His girlfriend was taping him, and he was making disparaging comments about Magic Johnson and other people that she brought to the arena. He gave her 4 seats, and she invited Magic Johnson and other people to sit at those 4 seats. And Sterling was ticked off about it and said, "I don't want you bringing Magic Johnson there." He never even used the N-word, although she tried to get him to say it. She's going to blackmail him. So the tapes get released, and holy hell is released on Donald Sterling. He apologizes, he cries, "I didn't mean this, I didn't mean that." And ultimately, the NBA took away his team. And that is why Steve Ballmer is now the owner of the LA Clippers. So this was around the time that Eric Holder gave the speech. And Eric Holder said, blatant racism, like the kind of racism we saw with Donald Sterling, we have that. You can't get away with that in America. What we really need to be concerned with going forward, he said, is pernicious racism. His term, not mine. And in his speech, he gave 3 examples of pernicious racism. Example number 1, he said, the push for voter ID. Are you kidding me? The majority of blacks support voter ID, some by the same margin as do whites. Supreme Court ruled 6-3, the majority decision written by John Paul Stevens, one of the liberal, if not the most liberal member at the time of the court. It was an Indiana case. And he said that voter ID advances a legitimate objective is to ensure the integrity of voting. That's your example of pernicious racism? You got to do better than that. Example number 2, he pointed out that schools, public schools, kick out black kids and punish them, suspend them more often than they do white kids in the same school. And that is true. And it's true whether or not the school board is all white, as was the case in Decatur, Illinois, when they were sued by Jesse Jackson for kicking out black kids, or when the school board is all people of color, as is the case of Oakland, California at the time. Turns out black boys are more disruptive than white boys. And if you don't kick them out and keep them in class, they will disrupt the ability of the other kids to learn and the teachers to teach. That's your example of pernicious racism? And it doesn't matter whether the teacher is black or the principal is white, what have you, black boys act out more than do white boys. We come back, I'll give you his 3rd example of pernicious racism and the other things that Obama has done to destroy the social cohesion that he claims that he wants to support, including embracing Black Lives Matter for all. Are you kidding me?